Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. I am here with our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare practitioner for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, functional nutrition and supplementation, and lab testing, all out of his clinic, Balanced Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida, as well as virtually all around the world. So he is also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting-edge health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. He's worked with celebrities and athletes all around the world. And tonight is going to talk about 3 game-changing habits for you all. But before we dive into that, we have our clinical insights to start.
Yeah, a couple clinical insights tonight, which is actually they're going to slide perfectly right into the habits that we're going to talk about as well. So, and again, these are just insights that I have when I'm practicing. Today's practice day, Tuesday, and I have one of those moments like, whoa. I think this would be an interesting thing to share because I don't know if everyone gets this, or these are the real things that happen in clinic and the reasons people come in, et cetera. So one I want to share with you is one that I want to share. The first one I want to share is a 42-year-old male, and he has frequent back pain and all kinds of, we'll just kind of call it stuff. But frequent, kind of in and out. And then he ends up coming to, getting his chiropractic adjustments. And so I said, Doc, what can I do to make this go better? What can I do to fix this? So I had sent him on his journey to start some yoga. So here's the interesting thing. Yeah, exactly. So here's the interesting thing about when I send people to yoga. Yoga is my answer when people say, well, Doc, what's the one stretch that I need to do to fix my back or whatever? And there's no such thing as one thing. It is always a combination of things. It's always a combination of things that take place. So the answer, especially for people out there thinking, oh, I have a low back, my hamstrings are too tight. And that's not really, that's not really the primary issue. When we have one thing like that, it's because our whole unit has gotten too tight and it becomes a little dysfunctional. So I sent him off to do yoga. Anyways, he comes back and says, and I asked him, of course, hey, did you start doing the yoga, whatever? And he says, yes, but it made me worse. So I stopped doing it. Yes. So I want to walk into this just a little bit because this is very common. This could be yoga. This could be, I tried that supplement. This could be, I tried that diet. This could be, I tried going to bed earlier, or whatever the suggestion is for health. The reason I'm bringing this up is when I had this moment, I thought, oh yeah, it reminded me of how often people want a magic wand.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that would be good.
It would be great. A magic wand would be phenomenal. In this scenario, when I sat back and looked at it, he goes, oh, he thought that if he did one yoga session, it'd be a magic wand and it would fix him. And I guess I just failed to explain, to kind of really share with him the idea of you've got to work in some flexibility and some mobility back into your life and back into your body. And as you do that, as your body functions better, you'll produce less pain in your life. And that's really the real description and understanding of it. So this is a little message for everyone out there that think or have had that moment where they've tried something new, and maybe the moment they tried it, it actually got worse first. So with that being said, don't bail out on things. I had another similar, now I'm thinking about this earlier in the same day, I had someone who started working out and said similar, that they're really sore from working out. So they don't think it's a good idea to use weights. And I couldn't help but think, oh my goodness, that's why we work out, to break down the tissue. So it is sometimes our lack of understanding of what we're trying to achieve, the things that we're doing, things like yoga, if we do them and we apply them really aggressively, the body might yell back first, even though it's a good thing. So I know that for often, Karen, this will show up when I'll start people on a ketogenic diet. In the beginning,
even just giving up sugar, you give up sugar, your body's probably going to be unhappy with you for a minute.
Perfect example. That's a blood sugar drop. And people say, oh, I have low blood sugar. That's okay. Like
Yeah.
it's okay to work through that. So your body can learn how to burn fat instead of just always having a fuel source. So that was number one again. And that was just a little clinical insight that, you know, sometimes there's not a magic wand, but the magic becomes in the commitment.
Yeah.
And when we make commitments on the bigger picture, in the big picture, in this particular scenario, which is a very small picture, this guy only wanted to be out of pain. He didn't actually want to function better. He wanted to remove pain. And those are two entirely different things. We've discussed that a little bit here on the Health Made Simple show, where the intention and what we're focused on, it plays a big role in whether or not we're going to sustain a new habit, whether we're going to, you know, move into God's garden or create some better movement in our lives. So that's a little clinical insight there. And these next two I'm mentioning here, I had two new two new clients. They did intake forms, and on that intake form, of course, I asked them how much water do they consume. And oftentimes people like chuckle, like, how much water do I consume? So one of them simply wrote, not enough.
Okay.
So I wanted to describe, I should have set this up better. I want to describe the commonalities of these two new patients. They both had high blood pressure. That's both of them. And then one of them had cholesterol issues. And then he literally wrote in his thing. So his water intake a day was 16 ounces, which means that it was less than that, because you would never sell yourself short, right? You would never put down 16, but really drinking 20.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
like,
totally not. Yeah. Well, would
you're always,
you'd write 20.
Yeah.
You'd be like, yeah, I drink 20. Yeah.
So at best, he's drinking 16. And then when it came to the meds, so I have a section that
really
said,
only one big glass, right?
Yes, correct. That's just one big glass.
Like,
and it's not that big
not
glass.
big.
I have this glass here, whatever, and that's that'll be easy 16 ounces. Anyways, so the next one of the questions shortly after that is, are you on any medications? And under medication, he put the usuals.
Oh, oh, that's not a great mindset to have.
No, it's not. So I thought to myself, oops, all right. I thought to myself, I just dropped and broke something here. I thought to myself, what are the usuals? And the usuals in this scenario were blood pressure, and cholesterol meds. Which is classic. So both of these people dehydrated, both of them don't drink water, both of them have blood pressure. Is that enough for a case, for a scientific study? No. Is this common amongst all of us that practice? Yes. We see it all the time. So those are my clinical insights. Let's not be dehydrated, because it happens to be one of the habits we're going to talk about tonight. And for everyone out there, so listen, if you guys have questions tonight, feel free. You can ask them live here or send them through on Facebook. And welcome, everyone. Love having you here. If you know someone that has blood pressure issues, find out, are they hydrated? Are they drinking water regularly? We're going to tap into that in just a moment. We'll go into that. I want to start somewhere else, but we'll talk a little bit about what happens when we're dehydrated. What happens to the cardiovascular system? It's shameful. Well, I don't know. That's not the right word. It's unfortunate that we aren't talking about hydration for years, literally for a solid decade. I know in my practice up in Atlanta, because my life changed when I started drinking water. I don't know if I've said it here in the show before, but I didn't really drink water until I met my wife.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. And because she was an athlete, all the athletes, they were training, 2 hours at a time, 3 sessions a day, 6 hours of training per day, weights, training, whatever, games and practice and all that stuff. Yeah, so they had to drink, they had an allotted amount of water that they had to drink every day as be part of the Olympic squad. So when, we first started dating, it was almost comical. She'd be drinking water and I wouldn't drink any. And so she literally would start making me drink more water. And what I found fascinating is that how much better I felt.
Yeah.
And especially things like my chronic low back pain. I had lots of muscles and stuff like that, but I was also sore all the time. And just that one simple health habit really started to make a difference, which was good. Now, with that being said, she also did introduce me to coffee. So I never had
really? You didn't drink coffee before?
Not until I was like, whatever, we met, like, I don't know, when I was 25 or something like that. So, she gave me the coffee habit, which is like my favorite thing in the world now, and water. So I love them both, quite frankly.
Well, at least you got the water to go with the coffee.
Yeah. So And every now and so, real story. I had this, it goes into clinical insights. I had a patient when I was up in Atlanta, and I would ask everyone, drink any water, and every day he'd say yes, yes, yes. But I had my hands on his body every week at least. Something's not adding up here. He felt chronically dehydrated. And I remember finally saying, David, that was his name, David, you tell me you're drinking, copious amounts of water every day. How much are you drinking? He says, 2 pots of water every day. And I say, 2 pots? What is 2 pots? He's like, yeah, I drink 2 pots of coffee every day. And that was his water consumption. He was very serious. I wasn't clear enough. Yes. He was drinking 2 pots of coffee. Yeah,
you should be clearer with that.
Yes, because,
I bet you're clear now.
Any of the listeners that are like in the healthcare field, or they put hands on people, massage therapists, chiropractor, physical therapists, and you put hands on people, you can tell right away if they're dehydrated. It's so clear. The muscles, the skin doesn't slide. The muscles don't want to give it all. So it's I
think that's common though. People say it about tea a lot. I mean, is tea? We can dive into it, but tea counted?
No, because it has the caffeine. So the caffeine works as a natural diuretic. So we can't confuse those things. Water is water. So let's just clear. So this is my clarity. Someone to say, does this count as water? And I would ask them, is it H2O or is it something else?
Yeah.
Or does it have something else in it?
Yeah.
So that's now the simple measuring stick. Is it H2O by itself? So
yeah.
All right, well, let's dive in. There's
okay, we're going to go through 3 game-changing habits.
Yes. And I don't know that any one of these are new, but they need to be emphasized. And especially as I practice every day, and especially what we saw over the last 2 years, there's some very simple foundational, and quite frankly, I'll put them in the category of critical. If we don't get these right, we're swimming uphill when it comes to our health. And there's so many things, longevity, vitality, brain power, disease, dysfunction, that if we don't get these right, everything's going to be off kilter, and then we go really chasing. And one of the things I recognize now, that information is so available, just like this podcast, which is awesome, right? At our fingertips, on our phones, we have all these podcasts, and I listen to them now as well. And as I do that, I see these strategies often becoming more and more in depth, more and more complicated, way down the road. And I, don't get me wrong, I love a lot of them, and I have a lot of them that I talk with people, but we cannot skip these foundations. I don't care what biohacking book, podcast you listen to. If you're skipping some of these foundations, you're missing out on what could be the simplest biohacks available. So number 1 is this: it's breathing. So the two most important and dominant elements in the world, on our earth, and for the human body is air and water.
Yeah.
So these we've got to get rich sources of. So breathing, of course, if you're alive, you're breathing, yet the quality of breath there's a huge variance here. And one of the things I notice, especially clinically, and I think especially the chiropractors and the acupuncturists and the physical therapists who are listening to the show, if they're observing breath, which many of us do, whether they're on a table, someone's standing in front of you, and you're watching someone breathe, you notice something changed over the last 2 years. Breathing has changed.
Yeah.
People are stuck in patterns. Karen, I'll literally lie people down on my table, and I could tell them, go ahead and, literally they're lying face down. So all their senses are going, they're just lying, they're gravity less, and it should be very, very relaxed. And most people's thoracic spine is still hunched up.
Yeah.
Even as they're lying face down on my table, and I literally put my hands on them and I'll like shake them a little bit. I'll say, Karen, just relax a little bit, let your shoulders down. I have to physically and verbally give an instruction. And I would say that that's probably 6, 7, 8 out of 10 people, even the ones that are seasoned veterans of coming in for a chiropractic adjustment. They know exactly what to do, but because there's so much going on, we're so wound up, our breathing patterns have changed. And now I want to go into the details of that a little bit. So, and I have some strategies I want to share with you about how to breathe. So I'm going to sum it up and just say this: if you're cutting this short and just looking for the punchline, learn how to effectively breathe through your nose as often, as frequently as you can. That's it. Yeah. In and out through your nose. If that's all you did, what it would require is observation and identifying how and when you're breathing. So one of the things I have in my personal practice now, so every morning I get up and I have my little morning ritual. I do my spinal flow, which the video is available, on our website. And then I start kind of yoga-esque movements. And then typically I get on a bike, a stationary bike, and I cycle. And I try to get my heart rate going, get my body lubricated and stuff before I do any other exercise. So that entire time I breathe in and out through my nose.
Okay.
If I'm not intentional about it, it immediately goes to mouth breathing. So now my heart rate's getting up. I'm getting up there into the 90s, maybe even to 100. My heart rate doesn't go up too much when I'm doing my cardio. So for me, that gets pretty high, and I require myself to breathe in and out through my nose. And when I'm focused on it, it's an incredibly different experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So nose breathing does probably more than we think. So one, it's a filter. So literally our immune system benefits by us breathing in and out through our nose. And we won't go too deep into it tonight, but that when we're a mouth breather, it often is a direct path to our microbiome in our gut. So we're bringing in different things. Remember, there's viruses in the air, there's bacteria in the air, and we're giving them that's not totally free, but they're getting in there a lot easier than they typically would if we're not breathing in and out through our nose. So the idea of just breathing, doing nostril breathing. Now, what does that mean? So literally you breathe in through your nose and you exhale through your nose. My favorite reason of teaching that over the years, and there's been some beautiful science that's come out lately to really emphasize how and why this is so important. And there's always been different techniques involved. There's alternate nostril breathing, and really my yogis that are listening, they get this because when they practice it, a lot of them will teach it, especially if they've dove deep into like a yoga teacher training or like a 200 or a 500-hour course. You learn a lot about breathing. So I sit in on these programs because my wife teaches them, and I'll do all this funky breathing. I'm holding one side, I'm breathing through the other side, and breathing in one and pushing out in the other. And it's fascinating the state of being that you can change with just breathing.
Yeah.
And it's literally fascinating. So the way I've applied that in clinic is helping people literally breathe in through their nose, counting it. So it takes their brain, especially when it comes to anxiety. My technique that I've used for years, it's been very successful. I do this for people that not only have anxiety, but also have gut disruptions, because remember, there's a gut brain connection here. And if you have nervous gut, this is very, very effective for you. So real simple, I'll have them do an inhale. They count their inhale. And so let's just say they can inhale through their nose for 4 seconds. I have them pause at the top and stay there for, you hold it for at least 1 second. So it's an intentional pause, and then release. Man, their exhale is the key. And then we double the exhale. So if you inhale for 4, you're going to exhale for 8. Now,
through your nose, both in and out?
Yeah, in and out through your nose. I've changed that over the years. Sometimes I've had that go out through the mouth.
Yeah.
So the beauty is when you're going out through the mouth, again, it's not the same. You definitely want to go in through your nose and out through your mouth. You don't want to go in through your mouth and out through your mouth. So exhaling through your mouth isn't necessarily, I don't know, as bad, if you want to say it that way, as is if you versus breathing into your mouth. We'd like to become non-mouth breathers. And clinically, you can really start to observe facial structures, the way a lip folds. I know I grew up with asthma, and as an asthmatic, I'm always pushing air out. That's the issue with asthmatics. It's not getting the air in, it's pushing it back out. And as a result of always trying to push your air out, you're talking about thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, a million breaths, whatever it may be. Your lip, your bottom lip and your upper lip typically start to roll.
Wow,
and this became really obvious to me one time. I was sitting in the asthma clinic and I was like looking at one of their books, and I was looking at all these pictures, and I was looking at all these people whose mouths looked just like mine.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. It was really, really fascinating. It was disturbing at the same time.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, everyone who has asthma have these lips that push out over the years. Although so my lips are full. I know people pay for that, right? So they're trying to get these big lips. that often is caused by poor breathing. So as clinicians, again, in functional medicine, we're not just looking at labs, right? We're looking at the entire individual. So I can see a little kid walk into my room, like into my clinic, into our studio, and literally I know they have a breathing problem. I know they have a microbiome disruption, literally by just looking at their face, because you always see the puffiness, but then you can just look at that bottom lip and to see how much it's turning out. And you could tell that they're a mouth breather. They're having sinus issues. It's part of the headaches. It's part of the and it's really interesting when you start to really recognize how powerful breathing is. And for you guys that want the shortcut here's the shortcut. Breathe in and out of your nose as often as you possibly can.
And that might take some intention. Like, does that always take intention for you? Like, do you mouth breathe if you're not thinking about it, or do you nose breathe if you're not thinking about it?
I still have intention, yet I'm much better than I ever was. So for example, I grew up most of my life a mouth breather at night, in and out, right? And that's a lot of where just like the mouth being open, the drip, the lip starting to kind of roll out. That was it. And then I intentionally, so this same breathing pattern, and I tell you, if you want to fall asleep at night, if you want to calm your gut down so you can fall asleep, or combination, that's the breath I use every night to literally shut myself off. And I monitor my sleep. We'll get into sleep in just a moment here. My latency period is roughly about 3 minutes. That's on average, meaning I lie down.
That's how long you take to fall asleep.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I lie down. Now there's a lot that goes into that, and I'll lay out what now. It's so funny. I was explaining to someone, they're like, "Do you do anything for sleep?" And I was like, "No, not really." And I was like, "Well, wait a minute on that." I'm like, it's moved up to almost my top priority in my health regimens, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But so I do a lot there, because if we sleep better, we're better human beings. Period.
Yeah.
Period. And I was talking to a fellow knucklehead today when I was talking about sleep with him, and I'll bring that up in just a moment. Anyways, back to the breathing. So yes, I'm more intentional about it now than ever. So I usually try to shoot for 10 of those breaths right before I go to bed. I never make it to 10. I usually make it to 3, and out I go. And that's the one that also, by focusing on the exhale, no matter how long it is. And the reason I'm mentioning that, I've recently read some other books and some authors that are suggesting other breathing patterns, 4 seconds in, 5 second hold, 4 seconds out, or similar. I don't know that it matters, because the one I use works, or the one, if we focus on the controlled exhale, I know what it does to the sympathetic nervous system. It lets it drop down. So that simple idea of, if you can exhale slowly, you can't be in a stress state. That's all we need to know. If you have a hard time falling asleep, it's because you're usually stuck in sympathetic dominance. Mm-hmm. So if you can get that breathing pattern in. So I've done that enough, Karen, where now most of the time it's not. If I find myself laying there, I instantly know to go to my breathing, because I'm not breathing right. It is so on point. Now there's other things.
That's practice, really, which is really what we talk about with everything.
It is practice, intention, desire. Yeah. Again, I have my wife basically thank for most of my good health habits. So, yeah, really, because if left alone, I would probably stay up past midnight watching ESPN. Okay. And I'd get up at 5 a.m. Like, that's what I would do. But that's not allowed.
Yeah. So
TV's not
very
allowed
lucky
on.
that you're not left alone to do that then.
Yeah, but that's what happens. She travels. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be a late night, and not because I'm out partying, because I'm like on the couch just flicking channels and doing whatever. So the beauty is the TV has to be off in my house at a certain time. There's no like the energy's not allowed and all that kind of stuff. So the benefit of that is that I started to discover what it was like when I actually got 8 hours of sleep, which I want to slide right into. We'll go right into sleep. So the habit number 2 that is literally a game changer is sleeping.
Yeah, which 8 hours, a lot of people don't get. I would say most people don't get. But I agree with you. For me, when I don't when I really try and prioritize getting, I mean, it doesn't happen every day, but I really try and prioritize getting 8 hours because I am just so much happier and more productive and better.
Yeah, I'll go as far as saying people who sleep better are usually better human beings. They're usually nicer. It's everything.
Everybody's less nice when you're tired. Like if you're
Yeah.
overtired, you're more likely to fight with your, spouse or with anybody. You're more likely to find everything hard. Like when you're tired, everything feels hard.
Yeah. So let's go into this because I get pushback on this.
Okay.
I get pushback from people, especially my guys.
Oh yeah.
And my entrepreneurs who, oh, no, I don't need that much. And it's listen, needing and utilizing might be two different things. I don't know. So you said most people probably less than, so there's a recent study out, 79% of America gets less than 8 hours. That's significant. Yeah, that's a
almost everyone.
Yeah, assumably everybody, correct? The other 21% are probably on some drugs that lets them, and listen, medicating yourself and drinking yourself to sleep does not count. We've covered that in different, shows here on the Health Made Simple show. So first thing to go typically is going to be cognition, our mental acuity, our sharpness. And that sharpness plays a role in everything. That could be driving down the road, being able to stop your car fast enough if a kid runs out. It might be remembering directions. It might be remember where your keys were. There's subtleties that when we get tired, our cognition goes, and it's an innate function that the body it dumbs you down so it can focus on survival because it knows when you're tired, you're more vulnerable for death, injury, sickness, disease, all the above. So that's real. And listen, and I think I've shared about, we've done several sleep episodes and we will do several more. I know in my personal life, and I hear this all the time for people. I used to think most guys that I speak to, and that was very close, very similar to the conversation I have with the guy today. He's an entrepreneur, kids, travel, basically says, you know what, I've always done it. I sleep 5.5, 6 hours. I'm good to go. So yeah, as you're burning on both ends. You say you're good to go because you can do it right now.
Yeah, you're functioning.
Yeah, you're functioning.
You're high functioning overtired.
Yes, it's a high functional overtired. And when we're passionate about things, that's where it gets a little funky because our passion, just like a little kid on Christmas Eve, can stay up all night long because they're so passionate and so excited. It doesn't mean it was good for them. And just because you can do something, again, that doesn't mean that it's good for you just because you can do it. So this is the conversation we had. And I said, listen, I get it. I used to do that whole thing. I would sleep about 5 hours a night. I'd get up early in the morning, go to work. At lunch, I would go work out. And when I did a second shift, I'd see patients in the afternoon. After that, I'd go do martial arts, jiu-jitsu, and banging up. And then after that, I'd go to Whole Foods. I'd be eating dinner at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Then I'd turn on ESPN and sit there in a days until 10, until midnight, and then go to bed. And I did that day in and day out. And it was almost like a badge of honor. And that's how a lot of us carry it. I can do this. And I've heard it all. I literally have heard, well, I'll sleep when I die. And what's interesting is Tony Robbins. Yeah. Great. For literally 3.5 decades, that's been his saying. I'll sleep when I die. Oh, he's changed his tune. And God bless him. That's one of the reasons I love him so much. He's willing to correct his old habits. Yeah. So he now has put in. Yeah, he's a massive learner. And I think that's one of the reasons he probably will outlive us all and still have more energy than every human being alive. That he now has really changed his approach because other experts and scientists and clinicians have shared with him, say, listen, Tony, I get that you do 4 or 5 hours, but because you have so much passion, but you will run the boat to the ground. So sleep is a critical one. So let's tie sleep for a second into hormones. And because this is usually enough to share with people, the way it came up with this gentleman today, he said he's doing everything right. And he got on, we have an in-body scale, which is a body composition tester. And it shows your body fat, your muscles mass, your lean body mass and everything. And everything he's doing is the same, but his muscle mass went down, like he's losing muscle and he's still training regularly. His body fat went up and his weight went up. So anyone out there that is struggling with weight and you find your weight going up, listen to what I have to say here because this is interesting. So here's a guy, he does a CrossFit type routines, and he's traveling, he's an entrepreneur, and he's got a family, and he's got all these things, all of the things on the out, and he eats, and not perfect, but he eats the same that he normally does. And again, muscle mass literally went down. He lost a couple pounds of muscle.
That's
His
not
body
what you
fat went
want
up
as you get older.
Right. So, exactly. And he's not that old. He's in his 40s. So when we start discussing this, when you're in our world, or my world here in functional medicine, you're looking for the root causes of stuff. And often the diet and stuff is part of it. But in this particular situation, had to go to the fundamentals that we're talking about tonight. And I said, Joe, how's your sleep? And he's like, wow, it's been one of those months. And here we are. And I want to go into the science a little bit that way, so people understand. So we have these two essentially fat burning / appetite hormones. One's called leptin, one's called ghrelin. Okay. So this is the way it works. So leptin helps you burn fat. Ghrelin is an appetite hormone. That's what, if you have a lot of ghrelin, you increase your appetite.
That's what makes you feel hungry.
Yes. So what happens is the more leptin you release, it squashes ghrelin. So leptin squashes your appetite. So because it reduces ghrelin. So it's one or the other. So if you have leptin available, it inhibits the production of ghrelin. And again, ghrelin increases appetite. So here's the interesting thing about sleep. This is how simple it is when you hear weird podcasts, and I don't know what we'll call them, like, misinformation. People say, hey, you can lose weight while you sleep. Here's why they're saying it. When you sleep well, you release leptin. Your body replenishes leptin and circulates through the body, and it decreases ghrelin, decreases appetite. Your body burns fat. It's a fat burning hormone. Increases the production of things like growth hormone. Phenomenal. When you are sleep deprived, and this could happen in an acute situation, one night at a time, the moment you're sleep deprived, you decrease leptin and increase ghrelin. So what that means to us is that as you decrease your fat burning, you will increase your appetite, and you just start eaping everything. And I feel
that massively. It's the time that I crave the most anything, really. It's actually apart from maybe some other times, but there's really the main time I crave anything is if I'm really sleep deprived. If I'm tired, I want to eat all the time.
Always. And that's that right there is actually great observation, because really what we're thinking, the way
always I'm tired.
Always. 100%. And sometimes I'll mention my wife, I'm exhausted. I'm trying to eat my way out of being tired. And
right. You do. You just feel like eating way more, especially, if you've got to work or something, people get tired and then go to work, sit in front of a computer. You're going to want to eat all day.
Right. So I have some people, here's where it gets a little interesting. I have some people that still have that discipline not to eat at all.
Okay.
So the body uses the muscle. It burns muscle. It burns muscle for fuel. Yeah. So it's real. And it's real. And because I have something called an in-body, it's a body composition machine. And again, anyone that's local, you can come in, you don't have to spend a dime on it. Just hop on it. It is the Truth Slayer, tells us our water weight, gives us a little bit of everything. So it's a fantastic piece of equipment to see where you are. My favorite is to monitor it over time. Like get in, just come in, take your shoes and socks off, hop on it, empty your pockets, whatever, hop on it, and do it at least once a month. And it just shows you where you're at, especially with your muscle mass. And again, we've talked about how important muscle mass is for many things. So now let's go to hormones for a moment. When we're sleep deprived or we're not sleeping good, now all of a sudden we're going to change our entire hormone panel. So for every woman out there, listen up. Other than a hysterectomy, the only reason your hormones have gone bad is because you've had too much stress and too little sleep. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's why it happens. Anyone tells you anything different, they're not telling you the truth. Because if you want to correct them, you're going to have to get those right. Even if you start taking hormones, you're going to have to dial those in. So, and diet will play a huge role in those. And does diet play a huge role on how we eat? On how we sleep? It sure does. Yeah. Right. So the glass of wine before bed, which interrupts the sleep, and especially things like deep sleep. So let's dive into some strategies right now when it comes to sleep. Eventually, my conversation with this gentleman who was open to it, he was like, yeah, and I told him, I said, listen, you're talking to a guy who was the president of the Knucklehead Club. Right. That was me. I was literally president of the club until I've learned the hard way to start to navigate around. Now I still have my membership. I just try to keep it inactive. That's my goal.
Just the secretary or the treasurer.
I'm just trying to keep it as inactive as possible. Yeah, there are some strategies that we can take, and this is for men and women, that we can take to enhance it. I love to monitor sleep. So we've talked about it before. My favorite monitoring of sleep is something called an Oura ring, Oura. I have no affiliation with the company. I think their product is the best in the market when it comes to measuring sleep data. It's not the best for exercise data. I think probably the Whoop, a Fitbit, your Apple Watch, all of those do a better job for your fitness, but nothing really comes from what I see out there is as good as the Oura for sleep monitoring. Now, when you have that data to look at, you can start to analyze what's my light sleep like? What is my REM sleep like? What is my deep sleep? And for those of you out there who just literally want to figure out how to get the best sleep to have longevity, live longer, and you want to anti-age, you need to increase your deep sleep, period. It is the single one that decreases with age.
Which is the shortest on the thing. Like, it's harder to get like some deep sleep.
It is harder.
What's a good amount of deep sleep?
Okay. You know, if you could push, definitely push more than an hour a day. So let's just say we have 8 hours. If you could push up into that 25%, so, maybe 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's one of the things that I'll often encourage anyone in my concierge group that I do the consulting there. I have them get an Oura ring so I can keep track of that. So they can tell me whatever they want, but we have to use some of this technology. Some of the AI, some of the information that we can get nowadays is so powerful, so effective. And it really, if we listen to it, that's the other part. You gotta like take the data, and it's like doing lab work and not making any adjustments. So we have to look at some of that. So
and especially if you've got the data, and then what you're saying about a glass of wine. I know when I haven't got an Oura ring, but even just on my Garmin watch, you have a glass of wine and then you sleep. Your sleep is, it measures your, your stress as well. Your stress is like high all night. Your graph looks crazy. You slept, you're like deep asleep, had a couple of glasses of wine, you fall asleep, but your stats are messed up.
Yes.
The whole night. It looks completely different to without the glass of wine. You slept, but your body has not slept. It's been in stress response like all night.
Yeah. So I want to give a couple of keys, and this has taken me a little while of like a personal dive into this, and then also with my with the clients that I work with, I can work a little closer and really kind of monitor this. Deep sleep is the one you want to target. No doubt about it. For longevity, for all the reasons I said, you want to feel better, you want to have better hormone production, you want to increase your testosterone, right? So men and women, listen, women, your testosterone is just important. You just have lower levels. So if you want to do this, we really want to put an emphasis on deep sleep. And the deep sleep, typically, like you just said, is the shortest part of it. Yeah, I'm gonna say the goal, let it be about 25%, which will push you in. And even Oura says 15 to 20%. Why not shoot for optimal function? Let's right. So we're functional medicine doc. So like we're always looking for optimal function. So let's push for that 25%, which would mean 2 full hours. So I'm going to give you my lowdown on the protocol that I kind of use. And I shared a little bit about one, making it that so I can get into sleep status to the best that I possibly can. Number one is this: we have to allot time for sleep. I know how simple that sounds. You have to do the math. If you go to bed now, do you even have 8 hours to sleep?
Yeah.
We have to do the math. And so most people be like, well, I'm sleeping pretty good. And I'll just say, well, what time you go to bed? Well, I go to bed at, 11. What time are you getting up? I'm getting up at 6. Well, if you slept every ounce of that, you only get 7 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
people don't. I mean, a lot of people don't fall asleep in 3 minutes.
No, they don't. That takes, you got to almost like figure out how to get there. It's almost like getting into the mindset of something. So with that, when we have to allot the time into, we got to put we have to stop having what I call sleep procrastination. Okay. Yeah. We all know what this is. We all are guilty. I'm guilty as well. Like sleep procrastination is like, well, I'm not super tired. I know I should go to bed, but let me just check that one more reel on Facebook or on Instagram, whatever. And next thing you know, you're 20 reels deep. Your hand hurts because you're flicking it. Like we've all been there. So sleep procrastination, we have to be really mindful of that, because all it takes is 1 or 2 times and it can really offset a lot of good work that you've had when it comes to sleep. It's different than one meal throwing you way off. One bad night's sleep can really throw you off, because the likelihood of you being able to slow down the next day you can fast if you have a bad meal. The next day, you truly slowing down is about, the chances are about Zim and Nero, right? Zilt and Nero. We do what we do, whether we're tired or not. And that's where sleep is really, really the one that we have to be careful with. So I'm going to share with you some strategies that are working for me. And again, if I have time allotment, my biggest kryptonite is time allotment. Yeah. Right. So I know it. So that's where I have to really practice that one. So these are some of the things that I do that I'm also sharing with my clients that are having success. And I've created these, Karen, with a strong emphasis on trying to increase my deep sleep. Okay. Most folks that I see that are up 40 plus years old often will get anywhere from 0 minutes to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And okay. I just checked mine last night, and maybe a little pat on my own back. So I had deep sleep of 2 hours and 31 minutes. So I had 39% of my sleep. Yeah. And this was not.
Yeah, no, mine. I mean, I actually haven't looked at it for a little bit, but it was always just over an hour, really. I can get an hour, but I don't think I've seen two, to be honest, on there. I need some of these strategies.
I'm about to give them to you. And the night before was 2 hours and 53 minutes. There's almost 3 hours of deep sleep.
Wow. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're paying off. And if you'd asked me this question a year ago, I would not have had this answer. So this is what we know about some deep sleep. One of the probably the most effective herb out there for deep sleep is valerian root. It's valerian. Yeah. And I'm explaining why. So valerian is, over time, especially used consistently, doesn't take a high dose, but valerian helps your body produce melatonin. Helps the pineal, essentially it affects the pineal gland in a positive way, and that's where melatonin's made. But I also discovered that if you're 40 plus, you probably have some aches and pains in your life. And I'll explain why I'm telling you this, because often an achy shoulder or this or that pain, like literally rolling over, it wakes you up. And that's a problem as well. So I'm getting to this in just a moment, because we created a formula, an herbal formula that really supports us. Now, another huge player in this is magnesium. Absolutely, positively a benefit. My absolute favorite out there is something called magnesium lactate. There are some other good ones. Magnesium threonate is fantastic, citrate, and it kind of goes down. But I would probably, my favorite, because I've used it so much clinically, and it's so predictable what it will and will not do. But everybody, even if you take it and it doesn't make you fall asleep or doesn't keep you asleep, usually magnesium's best effect is helping you stay asleep, essentially extending your deep sleep. If you become deficient in it, you will also significantly not only will you affect your deep sleep, you will affect your REM as well, because your liver. So when you hear us talk about magnesium, and I say us as practitioners and educators, and we say that magnesium is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions. Those enzymatic reactions are coming from your liver, and most of them are. And your liver is the one that's trying to detox, repair, conjugate hormones, doing all that stuff at night. And if you don't have that one element, if you don't have magnesium in your body, you will not do over 300 different things that are taking place. Wow. So should we all have a little magnesium? Yes. The conversation I have all the time, people are like, well, I don't know if I need any. Well, here's how we deplete it. If you have sugar in your life, it depletes it twice a rate. If you have alcohol in your life, it depletes twice a rate. If you're not sleeping, especially if you wake up in the night. So if you fall asleep, okay, but you wake up, you need it. If you have stress, you're depleting it massively. If you have anything that has glyphosate in it, your liver needs to produce an enzyme to try to get rid of it. And guess what they now discovered? There's glyphosate in everything, including the rain. So like organic foods, everything. So there are chemicals out there. So it's a broad statement.
It's sad, isn't it?
Yes, it's a bummer. It's like one of those black conversations. Yeah. So let me give you the strategy, because we're running short.
Okay. Yeah. Strategies. What do we do? I need deep sleep strategies. Go.
Yeah. So, all right. So magnesium at night, somewhere around 300 or 400 milligrams. We use
right before, or like a couple of hours before?
Somewhere within the hour before going to bed. Okay. But let's let it be the last thing, so you're not going to have a meal or a snack after it. Let's let those vitamins and minerals. That's always I'm leaning people more and more. If you're spending good dollars on your vitamin supplements and herbs, unless otherwise noted. I like them in an empty stomach. And if that upsets your stomach, that's also an indicator we need more digestive enzymes, especially if you that really means when you're eating whole food supplements. If you're eating synthetics, they can upset your stomach for a whole different reason. But nonetheless, so magnesium, if you're going to use magnesium lactate, about 400 milligrams, that's probably about 3 capsules per night.
Okay.
The RDA is about 600, but I find with a good quality magnesium taken before bed, if you take sometimes 600 will maybe make your stool a little bit too loose. There is a magnesium test, and the test is you start with about 300 milligrams and you take one additional tablet until you get significantly loose stool the following day, and then you back off, you go in reverse until you find it kind of balanced out. So that's one way you can find out what's a good dose for you. So that's one of the first things that I recommend. The other one is Karen, we have this one. You guys can call the office if you want. We could send it out, but we make this. We blend this tonic, and this has been a little bit of this has been like Dr. Bart is a mad scientist, and my crew has helped me out. My crew, me, and my amazing staff. We created something that's called the Chill Out Tonic, and that Chill Out Tonic is literally for that. It helps us unwind the sympathetic dominance that so many of us are in. That's that rolled up shoulders, the shortened breath, the tension on the vagus nerve, all of that. So in there, this is where the magic comes from. In there, there's valerian root, a liquid herb, pure as it gets. Probably is as good a source of valerian you're ever going to find. Very nice. There's also California poppy herb. And yes, this is an herb that will chill you out. Now, it doesn't have like THC or anything like that, but this herb, the reason I put that in there is because it not only does it relax the central nervous system, and it has a little bit of a calming effect on the musculoskeletal system as well, but it works as a pain reliever.
Yeah, nice.
So it's literally phenomenal. It's calming and pain reducing. And most people have a little bit of discomfort in their neck and their shoulder, thoracic tightness, and they're just living with it. So that's there as well. And then, of course, there's ashwagandha in it. And ashwagandha is one of the best regulators of our HP axis. That combination, we use just a really small dose of licorice root in there, which is just a great tonic anyways. Yeah, we use that for flavoring because those other tonics, I don't mind them straight up, but I want people to take this regularly. And it's like, I don't want people like right before bed cringing, like, oh my God, I got to do this shot. So it's super yummy. We give out these little medicine, like these little like shot.
Yeah, the little caps. Yeah.
Little caps. We give those every time we purchase a bottle. You do about a half shot before you go to bed. Same thing. And that will help you significantly move into that direction. Now,
oh wow.
Another thing I haven't talked a lot about on our show, there's a lot of good sources of CBD out there. I use the particular hemp oil I get is through standard process. And it's just easy for me to know where they farm it and how they farm it. So it's consistent with all the other practices that I kind of, support. And I know there's some other good brands out there as well. And I take some CBD every night.
Okay. Every night right before bed. Okay. So, and again, that helps the endocannabinoid system, which is still a new science, especially when it comes to sleeping and brain activity. So that's certainly an enhancer. The magnesium. And that's different from the standard processed hemp oil one. That's like you take a different CBD.
No, I take.
That's the one.
Yeah, it is. Just standard process. They label it as hemp oil. That's their version of CBD. Again, there's so many out there, Karen, at this point. You got to kind of sift through the good and the bad, just like anything. And it's just easier for me to go through them because it's a source I know, et cetera. They've done their homework on it, whatnot. So those three things are the consistent things, along with the breathing pattern, that I have used. And all of a sudden, a year later, my deep sleep scores are as good as ever. And in that, when we talk about longevity, when we talk about anti-aging, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about getting your body into that deep sleep because that's when recovery happens. So, all right. So let's shift gears here before I run out of time. And I want
what's our third? We've got a third one to talk about.
Yeah.
Because we've got water, sleep. Oh no, sorry, breathing, sleep. I've given away the third one.
Yeah, well, that's it. So so we got to go into water a little bit here again, and we've kind of spoken to it, this whole time here. So, and really, what about water is that we need it. Water is probably again, a little bit overlooked, and we got to kind of focus on a couple of things. So let's talk about how much and what kinds when it comes to water. And again, water, listen, it transports for us. And this is really, really important. It lubricates for us. It regulates body temperature. So I have people that have the subtlest little colds and they always get fevers. And that's because they're dehydrated. I have people that get a little bit of like a snuffle and it turns into infections because they're not hydrated enough.
Wow. And
So,
what you talked about earlier with high blood pressure, like I didn't know there was any link between high blood pressure and being dehydrated.
Okay, so let's just break this down to the fundamentals. And again, that's what we do in functional medicine. Look at the root cause here with blood pressure. If you're dehydrated, so I just spoke to that. Water transports vitamins, nutrients, elements. It's being transported through the entire body. It helps circulation, helps your lymph flow. So what happens if you're dehydrated? Your body becomes restricted. It's not flowing as well. So my finger over here, literally, that's farther from my heart, doesn't get the nutrients it needs. Yeah. So the way that the body responds, it triggers the adrenal glands to go, whoa, this isn't good. Let's increase our blood pressure. Let's increase that circulation. Let's do a little vasoconstriction, which is what vasoconstriction in theory is going to help that circulation get out to those areas and then start to supply what it needs. But if the water's not there, the body stays vasoconstricted. It's this simple, Karen. Think about what happens to a muscle when we're running and we're dehydrated. Yeah. It cramps. Yeah. Our heart is a muscle. Our arteries and veins, they are built of smooth muscle. They're all in the same family. So dehydration has a massive, massive impact. This is so significant. And listen, I hear some people out there be like, like these health gurus and be like, no, it's a myth. You don't need to drink that much water. Hey, listen, if you're eating fruits and veggies all day long, you probably could drink less water.
Yeah.
You could drink less.
If you were, that's what you were eating.
Yes, if you were, correct, you could probably do that. And you weren't drinking caffeine, and you weren't, out in the sun, and you weren't under highly stressful situations, and you weren't taking in chemicals and all the above. But that's not reality.
If you're super chilled all day eating fruits and veggies, then you might be okay.
Yeah. But we know that that's probably
that's no one. Yeah.
And water has been the thing that people would walk across the desert to go get for thousands of years and carry it on their head and carry, and make the same 80-mile trek the following day. So we know that how important water is for life. Yet in our culture right now, I think it's overlooked.
Yeah.
100%. Especially when I see, my general clients, and I think we know more and more, and there's sometimes that leads us away from these foundations.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, let's so let's talk about how much. I'm still sticking with the old fundamental of half your body weight in ounces. So I'm roughly 100, 180 pounds. So that means about 90 ounces for me. And I find that 90 ounces probably isn't enough.
Yeah.
And here's why it isn't enough for me. One of the biggest ways, other than exercise and being hot and all that kind of stuff that dehydrates, is talking. I talk for a living. I talk all day long. Yeah. And so the more you talk, it's one of the fastest ways we dehydrate. We're pushing fluids.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So if that's you, if you're on the phone a fair amount, you got kids, you're always talking, you're dehydrating. And I will tell you, clinically, the musculoskeletal pain is the number one reason that people go to doctors in our countries. Number two is stomach. And I would say that 50% of all pain across the board, I know it's a bold statement, if we were a more hydrated culture, we'd lose 50% of the pain quality. And so it is significant. Arthritis there's always a dehydration issue associated with arthritis. That's inflammation of the joint, right? So there's different types, but there's always a circulatory issue with that joint. That means that joint doesn't have enough circulation, and water is one of the fundamental things it does. So now let's talk what types. I think we're running tight here. What types of water should we drink? So ideally, we drink the clean stuff. If you're drinking bottled water, I just happen to have one here. And again, I have no affiliation with this company. It's called, what's it called? Mountain Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, and you probably don't have it over there, Karen, but this is one of the better ones here in the States. It's in glass, which is fantastic. We really do need to stay away from the plastics.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And here's what I really, really want you to say from: do not ever drink out of the plastic bottle that you left in your car overnight.
Oh yeah, because it heats up, right?
Yes. And that's when it releases all those chemicals and you taste it, you get the hot air and you're like, man, that tasted like plastic. You just put some of the worst, you know what, in the human body that you possibly can. So if you happen to leave your water bottle in there, even these Nalgene and all that stuff, you got to take that water out, you got to dump it. It still leaches. So the only thing that's effective, you really want to move to glass. And I think there's some like aluminum stuff. Maybe that might even be correct anymore, but we got to keep, you know, when you put containers in heat and you got water in it, oftentimes it leaches into the water. So you gotta be real careful with that. So there are the other probably, so we want as much dissolved minerals in your water, the better. That means
but
it
chemicals out. So chemicals
out, yes.
Water in. So chlorine, fluoride, some of the stuff that they add to water.
Awful, literally killing human beings.
You want out?
Yes, we want out. So, you know,
we add like lots of, we add fluoride to all our water, like tap water, if you're drinking tap water.
Yeah. Unfortunately, tap water is probably, there's like, it's probably, if you're going to go, I don't know, no one's asked me this question, but if someone has asked me, should I stay completely dehydrated or drink straight from my tap? I'd probably say drink straight from your tap and, you know, and support your detox.
You're thinking about it.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because there's so much fluoride in it now.
Yeah.
It's on a level of gross, like that, what's in there, like the amount of like birth control stuff. There's just, Karen, it's awful. It's literally awful, unfortunately. And even here in Florida, and there's some natural springs locally, but that's not the water we get. So Mountain Valley is good.
Filter it as well if you did want to drink.
You definitely can filter it. Reverse osmosis is good. So, but here's the thing with reverse osmosis. That's what we have in our office. We have reverse osmosis, and that's what I drink all day. The challenge with that is that you don't have minerals. So you have to replenish the minerals because the reverse osmosis takes everything out. So you're staying hydrated, you're creating the flow, the circulation, the lubrication, but you're not getting the dissolved minerals. The dissolved solids is really what they are. And what that is, that's calcium and magnesium. Those are the things that naturally occur in water. The other out there, another bottled water that if you're going to do bottled water, Evian. And I think Evian is an international product.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah.
So there are some decent ones that you can get when you're, you know, walking around out there or you're in an airport. Evian typically I was actually just traveling through the airports and places where I normally got my Evian is no longer there, which is a bummer.
Same actually.
Yeah.
Maybe something's happening. We've got a couple of brands though that you can usually get in airports. Like one's called Voss here that are in little glass bottles. Like they're only like 600 ml or whatever, but they're in glass.
Gotcha. Yeah. It's So anyways, that water, super important. Remember the two most important elements in the world, water and air. And if we improve those foundationally, you're improving fundamentally who you are as a human being. And I want to make a comment about sleeping here. Listen, sleep long, live long. That is science that we know. That is statistics that we do know. Those who sleep longer, live longer. And that's a pretty cool thing. And then we both agreed that if you sleep, people who sleep longer are just nicer human beings.
I am definitely a nicer human being the more I've slept. The less I've slept, the less nice I am to people around me. And then I really need to get an early night and also you start to feel run down. I know for me, if I start to get run down, for me, it's my throat. I start to get a sore throat. Like you start to pick up things.
Yeah, you kind of know your thing, that like you become a little bit more vulnerable here and there. But so those three things, Karen, those game-changing habits are breathe through your nose. So if you're just catching this last part of it, so breathe in and out through your nose as often, however long you possibly can. And especially right before bed, just exhale real slow and you'll shift your body out of sympathetic dominance. Make sure you get sleep. Whoever sleeps the longest lives the longest. And then they're also the nicest people. And you can, if you have the opportunity to get something like an Oura ring and measure your sleep instead of guessing at it, if you measure it, then you can start to make some, specific changes. I've talked about how I've been over, especially the last year, to really commit. And so I made a commitment saying, you know what, I need some better deep sleep. And it's come about, and I wasn't able to find anyone that had a formula. No, I don't think it's just me, because I'm seeing some others improve as well. So a lot of my clients are using that exact same strategy, which is awesome. And then of course, when it comes to water, we can't really be high functioning human beings if we're not hydrated. That's one of the simplest elements. I think it's 50% of women are made of water, 60% of men. It's something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
it's a lot.
Yeah. And I get there, you're going to hear a podcast or a Instagram post and some health guru is going to say, don't believe the myth. You don't need water. Nah, they're just trying to get likes and follows. Yeah, that's all I can say to them. And some of them are people I know, and I see sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? Like you don't need followers that bad.
Love that. All right. Well, well, what's going to be our one action then? If we've got one action that listeners can take this week to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman.
It's just real simple. Stay committed. Stay committed. Know your why, right? So like if you want to sleep better, you want to become a better human being, you want to live longer, you want to have more energy, you want to increase your hormones, testosterone to go up. Man, just stay committed and don't bail out if it gets a little rough, because it most likely will get a little rough, or you'll have to do some trial and error. So stay committed. It feels good to be committed. It takes a little mental and physical and even some spiritual discipline. So if you do that, there's usually something on the other side of it, whether you get your full result or you just learn something awesome.
Yeah, love that. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we will be back same time, same place next week for another episode of the Health Made Simple show.
Yes, and Carol, I appreciate every one of you. Keep doing anything, keep sharing out, keep spreading love here. We never know literally what the impact it will have. We just share one of these little shows. Someone grabs a little thing and makes a nice life-changing, effect, and has a life-changing effect for themselves. So keep doing your thing. And of course, we're going to take deliberate action for our mind, for our body, over wellness. Y'all be awesome.